Hi, this is Heidi from Garden Crossings, and it is a steamy day today here in Michigan, finally. I think it went from like 40 last week to 86 today. The girls in the greenhouse right now, they are working in about 100 to 110 degree temperature in the greenhouse. So it is cooking in there, but it's been so cold and now it's so warm. So I guess we got to be thankful for the warm temperatures finally. Today we're going to take a walk through the gardens. We're going to do a little bit of a garden tour here again. The flowers are just starting to color up a little bit, so I think we'll have a little bit more to talk about than what we did in the last garden tour. We're also going to talk about being a Proven Winners Destination Garden Center and explain exactly what it means to be a destination garden center for Proven Winners. Also, as we're walking through the gardens, I'm glad again I have my Hesea boots on because it is still a little bit sloppy out in some areas, but I do think now that it's about 80, 86 out here right now, it's time to transfer into some of these that are more like the garden shoes. So I'll have to go onto the website and take a look what they have for gardening shoes. So let's first get started and talk about the Proven Winners Destination Garden Center. So how do you become a Proven Winners Destination Garden Center? Basically, you have to be a garden center that carries a pretty full range of Proven Winner products, which Garden Crossings definitely is. So for those of you who are new watching the videos today, Garden Crossings is an online mail order garden center. So you can go to our website at gardencrossings.com and order every single Proven Winner plant that you can imagine. In addition to Proven Winner plants, we also have a large selection of other like non-branded plants as well. So definitely we are a one-stop shop for Proven Winners products. Products also include the water-soluble fertilizer, the slow-release fertilizer, if you're familiar with the augers, aqua pots, as well as the drip system, and pretty much anything Proven Winners has, you're going to find it in our store. And a lot of these items, with the exception of the aqua pots, are also on our website. So, Proven Winners Destination. When you come to Garden Crossings, things that you can expect. You can expect to find virtually any Proven Winner plant you're looking for. Obviously, the earlier you shop, the better the availability. We do sell out at some point. But if you are looking for anything Proven Winners, Garden Crossings should have had it at some point in the selling season. Also, another thing I think that really sets us apart is we have a huge display garden here at Garden Crossings, and we're going to take a walk through that. And in these display gardens, we try to feature as many of the Proven Winner plants as we can. So if you want to see the Proven Winner plants live and in action, we have these open gardens that you can walk through at any point and check out the different plants. Speaking of walking through the gardens, I do want to bring up as well that I will be doing a garden tour here next week, Tuesday, which is May 17th. And it's something you can sign up online for or leave a message below and I can get you the link. I'll be taking for a walk through the gardens and just explaining to you a lot of the plants that we have, as well as, the different stages that they're starting to come out. We'll probably also go through the butterfly house at that point to take a look at what's blooming in there as well. So I think I've done enough talking. Let's get moving and walking through the garden. So we're going to start the garden tour here along the parking lot garden. There's a few things starting to bloom. I think obviously the most obvious right now is the phlox here. This is the Spring BLING Pink Sparkles. And this is a nice ground cover phlox. You can see the flowers are really a nice large size for the phlox. And as the flowers kind of mature, the colors kind of change a little bit from a darker pink to kind of a lighter pink. So it's really pretty to see the contrast of color along this mound of the phlox. Another plant we have blooming right now, this is a prunus or an ornamental cherry. This is called Zuzu. And this one is just a little bit past its prime. The flowers are I'm looking a little bit tired at this point, but this is a pretty immature plant. It's only about 3 years old or so in this garden. So as it ages up a little bit, it'll get even more flowers. Nestled nicely there behind it is a Jacob's Ladder, and that is beautifully blooming right now. It's getting pretty much part sun. Sun comes later on in the afternoon. It's got that beautiful olive green foliage, kind of that fern-like foliage with the periwinkle blue flowers. And it's a great early season bloomer. You can see a lot of flowers on there now, and there's a ton of buds that are just waiting to crack open and also put on a little bit show as the season continues to go on. Another plant that we plant in this garden for early spring color is columbine, and we've got this red one over here just starting to put on some buds. So I would anticipate, especially with all this heat we're getting, those flowers will be opening soon, and we'll have the beautiful red and white columbine flowers showing up as well. Actually, here's one just a little ways down that is blooming, so we can take a look at that flower just to let you see what it looks like. And that is the Achalesia early bird red and white columbine. Moving right along, you can see that a lot of the foliage is coming up really nicely. We've got the trellis in place. The clematis are starting to cling on to that. What you might find is if you have clematis and they're starting to lay flat on the ground, but you do have a trellis or something for them to grow onto, just kind of get them helped up onto the trellis, and they'll make their way through and start weaving through the metal wires that you're providing for it. The opening act phlox is really coming up nicely. You can see the nice patches of it here. So once that's blooming here in a month or so, that's going to be a great mass of color. The Bartzilla peony, this is gorgeous right now. A nice huge specimen, and the flower buds are in there, but this is probably going to be again another month or so before we have the beautiful yellow blooms on Bartzilla. But that is an excellent peony if you're looking to plant a peony in the garden. It's an intersectional peony, which means it's a cross between a garden peony and a tree peony. So you get the beautiful flowers of the tree peony, but the habit and sturdiness and fullness of a garden peony. Walking along, we've got the dianthus that are starting to just start to bloom a little bit. These are part of the Paint the Town series. So those are a nice ground cover dianthus. I think once we do our next video, we're going to see a lot more color coming from them. But that's just a really nice ground cover that fills in and is like a mass of color once the blooms start to show. The wee white hydrangea, you can see this was trimmed back to about 18 inches or so. Most of the growth is coming from the base. So if we wanted to, we could trim some of those sticks off. But I think for now we'll just leave them there because it'll all fill out and look nice as it continues to put on more growth. Here's another Jacob's Ladder. I didn't mention the name earlier, but it's called Heaven Scent, and scent like fragrance. It's a very fragrant bleeding heart with a beautiful, again, periwinkle blue blooms. Really a nice addition for the spring garden. One thing I want to point out as we're walking along is a lot of times people ask about butterfly bush and how do you trim them, when do you trim them, why do you trim them, how you trim them. That was a lot of who, what, when, where, and why. But anyways, let's take a closer look here at the pugster. This is the pugster blue butterfly bush. You can see this was trimmed back to about 8 inches this spring. And here in Michigan, most of our new growth is going to come back from the base. And that certainly is the case here with this pugster blue butterfly bush. You can see all that green down there in the at the base of the plant, and that's typically what I would expect here in a Michigan garden, is to see most of your growth coming down at the base of the plant. Moving along, we've got some more of the dianthus looking nice along the fence there. That's the Allium Millennium, and those will be blooming sometime in July, so they got a long time yet, but it's a nice looking foliage plant even before it starts to bloom. We have a candy corn spirea that's just starting to come up. We had some bark, like we got all the beds all freshly blown in with bark. So that bark, when it's going through the tube, can be really hot. And sometimes when that bark lands on the plants, it kind of gives them a little bit of a burning. And that's kind of what happened here with the candy corn, is when that hot bark touched it, it kind of burned it a little bit. I'm not too concerned, it'll come back and look nice, but that's kind of what's going on right there with that candy corn spirea. More allium, beautiful poppy, that's going to be blooming here shortly. I love poppies for spring color. Another Bartzilla peony waiting to go. Another huge mass here of the opening act blush phlox. That's a nice phlox. It kind of gets bigger and bigger every year. It doesn't necessarily send runners everywhere, but your clump continues to get bigger every season. More clematis doing really nice here on this trellis, and I'm seeing that the diamond ball is starting to put on some buds. So that's going to be exciting to watch that once that starts to bloom. We have the Atlas Rose that's filling out nicely. What else we got here? Some lupin and salvia. And then here we have another phlox. This is, it's not labeled. This is going to be another one like the one we talked about in the earlier video, but I believe this color is either magenta or rose. But again, beautiful flowers, nice mass of color for spring. Plant 3 or 4 of them together in the garden and it will just give you this beautiful focus point in the garden. Behind that is actually the Firelight Tidbit. And that was trimmed back to about 12 inches last fall, and we can see the new growth is starting to emerge on the sticks there. Still very fresh and very young, but the growth is starting to emerge. So I'm really excited to watch that one bloom this summer because I've seen it out in the trial garden, but I haven't had a chance yet to experience or grow it in my own garden to see what it looks like on my own, basically. We're going to take the corner here, head through some mud, and see what we have blooming in this part of the garden. So what we are thinking of doing in this area here is this winter we built greenhouses, and so the construction vehicles were kind of going back and forth in this space a lot, and so it was just kind of getting dug up and stuff. So we're going to get this all smoothed out, get some grass seed put in, and get it all planted up. That way it's kind of a really pretty kind of park looking area going through this front space here. So that'll happen hopefully this summer where we'll get some seed down and get it looking really nice again. So as we continue to walk along this front garden here that lines our outdoor garden center space, we have another phlox, and this one didn't get labeled, so we'll have to try a matter of elimination, go to the website to figure out what it's called. More allium. Another beautiful phlox here. We do have some Shasta daisies that are starting to come up along the bed. So those, I believe those are Daisy May. So those will be really pretty midsummer once they start to bloom. There's also a few irises that are kind of tucked in through here. They're older irises that happen to be in this bed when we first had it. So we just left them in here because we didn't really have any irises in our collection. So we thought we'll just leave them to have some pretty irises going. Let's see, here we have the low scape mound. This is an aronia, and this is starting to put on its little buds. So this is a spreading plant. So if you're looking for a shrub that kind of fills in a space, this aronia would be something that will fill in a space over time. And it has really small, pretty white flowers on it when it blooms. Another aronia. And then we've kind of mirrored one side to the other in this bed, so we've got some more irises, some more Shasta daisies in this space. So this will be a space where we will probably put some of the new annuals for 2023, and then also too, there's a lot of open space in this garden. So some of the new perennials that we have, this will be a great space and place to put those as well. So we're going to head on over to the new berm and check out what's going on over there. So this is the new garden bed that we just started last fall. So pretty much we know everything that's planted in here, and we're trying to be smart about this garden since it's a new garden by creating little labels that can go by every plant. So that way as people come and walk through this garden space, everything will be labeled so that they can easily know what they're looking at without trying to guess or come ask us. And it's also going to be nice for me as well, because to be honest, I mean, I know most of the plants, but a lot of them have the same foliage, and it's not until they flower that you know exactly what the plants are called. So that's going to be great out in this space. So a lot of these plants are very young because they were just planted last fall, but for very young plants, I think we have a lot of really cool things going on. So right up front here, great foliage. This is the Drops of Jupiter. This is oregano. It's got that beautiful chartreuse green foliage, and then it's going to get some purple flowers on it as the summer goes on. And behind it, it's paired really nicely with that dark near black foliage of the Midnight Masquerade. So that yellow with that black, that is going to look stunning once that kind of all starts to fill in and become mature. As we're walking along, we did kind of a little patch here of Monarda. We know Monarda is going to kind of spread a little bit, so that will be a nice little mass of Leading Lady Raspberry, once that starts to bloom. So that will be nice. Next to it, we have the Bergina Miss Piggy, and these were blooming already in the last video we did out here. So these are an early spring bloomer, and really great foliage. We'll see how they do though. This is a very full sun area, and typically these plants like to be in a more shady, moist area. So we'll just see how they do, but so far they've done pretty well. As we walk along, we have, what do we have here? Oh, this is the Black Cat Pussy Willow. So the gales have recently just trimmed that back and got it nicely shaped up. But Black Cat is one of those plants that's going to give us winter interest out in the garden. So it gets pretty big, so that's why it's on the back side of the berm. But yeah, excited to watch how that does throughout the years as it's growing. Moving along, we have a couple of the hollies. We have Castle Keep and Castle Wall and Castle Spire. So when you're planting the hollies, you need to make for sure that you have a male with the females so that the females get the berries. So in this situation here, we have Castle Wall with Castle Keep and Castle Spire, so that we'll be getting berries. And these were planted for winter interest as well with the berries and then the evergreen foliage. Continuing along, got a little bit of sedum here. This really isn't doing much yet, but this will be a great ground cover once it starts flowering this summer. This is the yellow brick road sedum. So that's kind of nice to make a path out of yellow brick road, right? We've got a few daylilies going on, some sage, not much. They're still pretty small, so not too exciting there. One of our new Weigela we have planted right here. This is Vino Verde, and that's a really pretty variegated foliage with the lime and the green, and that will get pink flowers on it, and that's just starting to emerge, so that will be a fun one to watch as the foliage gets more and more mature. Up here on the top of the berm, I wanted to show you this nice little drift we have planted of the Sprinter boxwood. So those were planted from a quart-sized container last fall. Sprinter boxwood is an evergreen boxwood, so this will be just kind of a nice little swoop of green in the winter. And that's a plant that you can kind of create a hedge out of. You can shape it, so if you want to make like a squared off or a rounded off hedge, that's what the Sprinter boxwood would do. Also, we have a couple trellises up here, which are for the Rise Up series of roses. So we have Rise Up Amberness, Rise Up Ringo, and Rise Up, it's a lavender color. We'll pop it on the screen, how about that? But they're gonna be more of the climbing type roses. So we put some nice heavy sturdy trellises up here to let the roses climb. They're about 5 foot at maturity. So these are about a 5 foot, maybe just a little bit shorter trellis. But I think they'll be the perfect size for those roses as they continue to grow and mature. Along the front side of the berm here, we planted a couple of the Kodiak Durvilla. So we planted one of each color. So Kodiak orange, black, red, and then there's a new one too called Kodiak Fresh. I don't think we have that one planted up here. But Kodiak, the Durvillas, if you're looking for a plant that is just like rock solid, can be grown in shade, full sun, it's a native, it's deer resistant, you know, good soil, crappy soil, pretty much Durvilla is one of those plants that if you have a location, it's gonna thrive. More sun it gets, the better the coloration is. But if you're just looking for a shrub to go in a space because you have nothing else that works in the area, there's a good chance that Durvilla will be an option for you. We have some fantastic trellises that we put together. So we were trying to decide, you know, what did we want to do? Did we want a formal looking trellis? Are we okay with just something a little whimsical and fun? And I think that you need to have a few little whimsy pieces out in the garden. So basically what they did is they took some re-rod, spray painted it fun colors, and these are what we're going to be using to grow our clematis on. So we might find out that we have to help the clematis a little long, maybe put some fish line or something to give it some cross braces to climb onto. But for now, we've just taken some, not zip ties, but twisty ties, and kind of twisty tied the clematis to the re-rod, and we'll help it kind of train it and get up there and get tall. When I plant clematis, what I like to do is plant 3 different varieties or whatever seems to make sense for the area you're planting in. because if one's not blooming, maybe the other one is. And if you've got a beautiful structure like this, why not utilize it and hopefully have blooms on it throughout the summer? So when I choose my clematis, I try to find like an early bloomer, mid bloomer, late bloomer. That way there's always kind of something going on. At the edge of this little area here, we have a Sambucus lemony lace, which is a really vibrant chartreuse yellow Sambucus. And we'll see how that does out here in the full blazing sun. It might be a little bit too warm out here for it, but you don't know if you don't try. And sometimes I do like to try to push limits on things, because I have a lot of people that like things, but maybe their area isn't, conducive to it. So if I'm the one pushing the limit, I can say, hey, we did this and it worked for us. It may also work for you. So full sun on that for now, and we'll see how it does. Also along the front, we've planted some corabelles, which they blend right in with the bark. So that probably wasn't our best choice of color. We'll see how they do. Hopefully the color will kind of pop a little bit once the sun gets on it. Also did a nice little mass planting there of the sedum, which will be just a great little ground cover sedum. Give us a lot of color for late season color. As we make our way around, we've got these beautiful bleeding hearts. And the beauty of these bleeding hearts is they are a full sun bleeding heart. Usually bleeding hearts like to be grown in a full shade location, but these particular ones here, the pink diamonds, they like full sun. And if you are liking plants that bloom all summer, these are certainly a plant that's going to give you color all summer long, and that clump is going to continue to get bigger and bigger as the summer goes along. So pink diamonds is definitely, if you ask me, like one of my 100 favorite plants. We'll continue to make our way around here. We have a patch of salvia and veronica here, so this will be nice earlier season color. Little lime punch hydrangea here, and next to it is another little lime punch. So these will get fairly good size once they get mature. But like you, a lot of what we planted last fall was from quart-sized containers, because that's all we had available the time the planting came into time to be planted. So this is also good for us to plant quart sizes, so we know like what you're experiencing with planting a quart-sized shrub. And obviously you can be successful with planting that small size if that's the only size that is currently an option. We've kind of taken the bank and built it up a little bit. So the idea with this space here is we are going to kind of mimic the other side of the property with placing rocks. I don't know what they're called. They're like kind of a flat rock on top of each other to create kind of a retaining wall look. Just kind of create like a little swooping inlet there, and then plant right on top of the ledge. So this is going to be part of a summer project that will go on. And yeah, your garden is never done, right? Because when a garden is finished, usually that means it's dead. So a garden that's really thriving is an active garden that's always having something done to it. So walking along here, we have some Caryopteris, which are a fall blooming plant. Now looking at these, I'm a little suspect that maybe these Beyond Midnight have not overwintered very well. So we'll give them another month or so and see if any foliage appears. Actually, I'm looking in here closely. It is. So these are a lot like the butterfly bush, and they come back a lot of times from the base, and there's some teeny tiny growth there. This here is pretty dead, but if we cut this off, which I'll have to come through with the trimmers, have the girls trim it, but here we're going to have our new growth for next year. So these are a great plant if you love that or that really bright dark blue color. Is that a thing? Bright dark blue? I don't know. It's a beautiful blue for the fall. So we'll come through, trim some of this dead off, and just watch it come back from the base there. Another Caryopteris. This is the Sunshine Blue too. And this one we can tell is coming back just a little bit better with more new growth. But even this at the tips here, this is all dead. So this will have to get trimmed off, because you can kind of see now where the new growth is coming from and where it's not. We've got a lot of little sticks in here. So these are placeholders, and I don't even know what the thought is of what they're putting here. not sure. Oh, it looks like maybe leucanthemum is what it says. So obviously they have a plan for a swoop of something that's going to go behind that retaining wall once we get it planted in place. Double play doozy spirea, really a beautiful, actually no, this is not. This is double play blue kazoo. So it's got kind of that nice blue foliage going on. So that's got really kind of a unique foliage, different than some of the other spireas. All right, let's continue to walk along. So there's a massive sweep here of all of the Monarda. So that will be really pretty midsummer. Behind the Monarda, there is a Mr. Mustard, and that shrub has got great foliage with the greens, the oranges, and the yellows. It does get a little flower. The flower is not super significant. That one is more grown for its foliage, and I think it's a great plant with some really great foliage. Up front here is a couple more of the double play candy corn spirea. So those will add that bright yellow color out in the garden. And then when they're flowering, it'll have kind of a magenta type flower. Got a Weigela here. This is going to be one of the darker leaves Weigelas. I'm not sure, but if I had to guess, I'm going to say it's probably Midnight Wine Shine, which is really nice shiny foliage. And here's another mass sweep of the creeping phlox, the dark magenta here, which we saw earlier, and I said we'll have to get back to you with a color. I've got the color nailed. So this is called Spring Bling Ruby Riot. And if I had to pick of the Spring Bling series, Ruby Riot probably is my favorite. And I must say, me and Miss Ruby Riot there, we're coordinating quite nicely today. Next we have the Spring Bling. This is the Pink Sparkles, and this was one at the very beginning of the video where we showed you that mass planting. So that's Pink Sparkles. And then rounding out the end here is Spring Bling Rose Quartz, which is just a little bit lighter color. And oh my gosh, look at that beautiful bumblebee. So that's the first one I've seen of the season, and that little guy is not so little. That is a giant bumblebee. So pretty to see all the, I don't know, all the pollinators and stuff that are coming back into the garden. So he's got a beautiful yellow coat on him as well. As we walk along, we have in the back there, that's a grouping of the Nymphophea, the Pyromania series. So those are the poker sticks that will be blooming midsummer. Those are, excuse me, those are paired with the Achillea or the yarrow, and they kind of bloom around the same time-ish. So they really are complementary, both very drought tolerant plants for in the garden. Here we have a massive sweep of the leucanthemums. What do we have out here? Spun Silk and Daisy May. So yeah, a lot of really pretty leucanthemums for summer color. As we continue to walk, we've got some Veronica, Purple Illusion, that will be flowering. And then a little mass here, small mass I guess, of coneflowers. Some more Veronica. A little sweeping here of the Yuki Cherry Blossom. And then to round this garden bed out, we have more of the creeping phlox. These here are the Sprite series. So the end is Magenta Sprite, Purple Sprite, and Rose Sprite. These are a little bit further behind the Spring Blings. Flowers are just a little bit smaller in size, I would say, but both very beautiful colors. We also planted around this large rock a few of our big leaf hydrangeas. We've got the Let's Dance Ariba, and what's really unique with Let's Dance Ariba is it's a reblooming hydrangea, but once the first set of blooms is kind of starting to look a little like they're fading, the next round of buds is right there waiting to explode. So it's very quick to cycle through from bud to bloom. So you always are either in bloom or just there waiting at the door for the next set of blooms to happen. So that kind of rounds out the new garden bed. Again, very immature bed for now, but it's something that we can watch grow together as we continue to do these videos. And I think it's nice to see, what do the young plants look like in the garden? Because not every garden starts off mature. I mean, that's not even realistic. So nice immature garden that we'll watch growing together. Let's head out to the waterfall bed. It looks like we've got our FedEx ready here to pick up today's packages. So for those of you who order through mail order, we usually get about 2 semis a day that we fill up with packages that can head straight to your door. So it's always a beautiful sight when FedEx rolls in around here. Let's head to the waterfall. There's not a lot going on yet at the waterfall garden. Obviously our annuals haven't been planted yet. We've been kind of waiting on the weather, but it was bipolar this year, going from 40 to 90. So I think it is time we can get annuals planted as soon as the gardeners are ready to do that. But what we have out here is just to show you the bright green you're seeing. Those are spirea. Those were trimmed back last fall. Behind the spirea are the hydrangea incredible invincible spirits, and those two were trimmed back last fall to about 3 feet. So those bloom off of the new growth, so we don't have to worry about them not blooming because they're very reliable. So we kind of lined this front bed here with spirea. In the back, the dark bush you're seeing, that is the wine and roses weigela, and that got a nice shaping last year too. They shaped it back to about 4 or 5 foot or so. So that will look nice. So one thing when we're designing this garden, I don't know if you can hear the traffic noise through the mic or not, but one thing we have to do when we're creating these garden spaces is we have to make it a 65-mile-an-hour garden. And what I mean by that, we have to make it a garden that will stop somebody from going 65 miles an hour in a 55 to stop and shop at the greenhouse. And usually what we do is we do get that impact going once all the annuals and stuff get planted. But this is what I like to call the 65-mile-an-hour garden, just kind of as a joke, but not really. Blooming in this area, we have a show-off forsythia. I believe that is show-off starlit, and it's almost finished, but at least it does have a little bit of color going on here. We'll just kind of quick do a pan over. There's not a lot going yet in obviously the sign that hasn't been planted. And then the berm over there, there's not a lot of color going on over there yet neither. So I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of quick head around the back side of this. I want to show you the status of how large the baptisia are, because I think that's probably going to be one of the next things that we see in here that's putting on our next favorite spring show. So let's go check out the baptisia and how far along they are. So one thing to point out when planting baptisia, you want to make for sure where you're planting it is a place that can be its forever home. So baptisia have really deep root systems, big tap roots that go down. So when planting them, make sure it's where you want them to stay. Or if you're not so sure, don't think long on it, get them dug out and get them moved. But this is a baptisia. They're about 10 to 12 inches tall so far, and they're leafing up really nicely. And as we go in and take a little bit closer look, we can see that their buds are definitely starting to form. So these I think are going to be the next thing in this space that are going to give us a lot of color. So I'm sure on our next garden tour we'll be talking baptisia as well. I hope you enjoyed this tour today. If this is the first time you're watching, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you join. If you have any comments on anything that you've seen today or in general, leave comments below. And again, this is Heidi from Garden Crossings, and thank you for touring with us today.